GameMaker is an engine that makes things easy. If you're not good at coding, you can use the intuitive visual drag and drop coding, and even if you do like coding, things are made much easier and intuitive, as GameMaker is very lenient on syntax. For example, it doesn't matter if you put a semicolon at the end or not, GameMaker accepts it anyway. Some people say these things make GameMaker too easy, but I think that's the entire point of a game engine, to make game development easy. But this video is only my opinion, cancel me, kill me, but at least leave my family alone, please. But if you want to stick around and hear my opinion, then I'm Ice and this is the third devlog of my game Feradeus. When I got back into game dev, I had to choose what game engine I want to work on. I have tried Godot, Unity, Unreal and GameMaker, and at the end I decided to go with GameMaker. Now this has a lot to do with me. I choose GameMaker because this is already a game engine I'm used to, and currently I really just want to make a game. I don't want to learn another engine or another programming language. If all you care about is making a game and you already know an engine, I recommend to just stick with that one, as learning a new one takes a lot of time that you could spend actually making progress on your game. But of course it depends on the type of game you want to make. If you want to make a 3D game, GameMaker is not the best, though it has gotten better. While I was working on my previous project Feradeus, ChatGPT was not released, and because I sucked at programming, I needed to get help from other programmers. Originally I used Godot and later Unreal Engine, but turns out both have a relatively small user base, meaning it was hard to find anyone who could help with programming. Later I switched to Unity, and that's when I actually managed to find people who could help with programming. Then I realized it was not a good idea to make myself dependent on other programmers for my game to work, and should instead do the programming myself, even if I'm not particularly good at it. So that's another reason why I switched to GameMaker once I would get back to a new game dev project. GameMaker is also great for 2D games. It is very uncomplicated and quick to prototype. While I do think using a 3D engine for 2D games enables you to do more things, it does also make things a lot more complicated. If you're not very familiar with programming, I definitely recommend starting with a 2D game and to use an engine that you're, as I said earlier, are either already somewhat familiar with or one that is easy to learn, which is, by the way, GameMaker is easy to learn, just in case you haven't realized. There are of course some things I dislike about GameMaker. The biggest thing for me is definitely the GameMaker workspace. I don't know whose idea this was, but it was a bad one. It's super clunky and useless, and I also wish there were some extra features like the ability to change the name of an object without having to change the entire code. I don't know if other engines have this, but GameMaker doesn't. There probably is an add-on for this, but I think this is the sort of thing that should be there by default. One tiny drawback there also is with GameMaker when you're programming with ChatGPT is that ChatGPT will often confuse GameMaker language for JavaScript, and because of that correct syntaxes that aren't wrong, rather than actually solving the issue that you're asking it to fix. I don't know how it is with other engines, but I'd assume the issue doesn't appear with Unity or Unreal, since they don't use their own programming languages. All of that leaves the question, will I still be using GameMaker in the future? Let's say I finish working in GameMaker one day. Will I keep using GameMaker for a following project, or will I choose something else? Honestly, looking at the recent update to Godot, I think there's a good chance that if it improves even further, that I will attempt to switch to it. Godot is open source, and that's really the only argument you need. Yes, open source projects tend to require more technical know-how, but that's less of a problem now that we have literal AI that can help us with it. GameMaker is cool and all, but it costs money. Godot, because of its open source nature, is fully free. And my experience with open source is that often they're even better than regular software. Because if people have an issue with the lack of features, rather than waiting for the developer to fix this, they can just fix it themselves. Godot is also 3D, and I imagine that after developing a 2D game and having gotten some experience with that, I'd like to make a 3D game or a 2D game with 3D features. When I did try Godot, I also really liked the way the node system works. It's much more visually intuitive than the objects in GameMaker or the whatever, I don't know what it's called in Unity. Does it even have a name? With the title of this video, you might have expected me to really recommend GameMaker over other engines, but no. You should pick what's best for you. I'm just highlighting some of the pros and cons, and the point of this video was really just to talk a bit about why GameMaker is kind of underrated. And also that I just felt like rambling about game engines because it's an interesting topic. Another interesting topic is this subscribe button. It's bright red like the sun and shiny like your grandpa's forehead. This amazing thing allows you to get notified when you press it and makes my dopamine go higher. And it even helps me in the fight against the evil YouTube algorithm. So I say you should press it, just like how I will now press stop on the record button.